Welcome to the Top 1% Recruiters. I'm Alex Rojas, your talent advisor and host for this episode. This is a good one. I'm going to walk you through the best recruiting pitch to candidates. That's right, the best recruiting pitch that you can give to candidates. What's happening in the marketplace is that candidates find themselves unimpressed with a lot of recruiters out there. They're actually kind of defensive, a little skittish, a little annoyed every time they have to have a conversation about an opportunity that a recruiter wants to talk to them about. They can't even make the distinction between a junior and a seasoned recruiter. And recruiters, quite honestly, have gotten a little lazy, or they lack of the training and the skills to have a high-level conversational, one that you position an opportunity with a candidate so that you start pre-closing during that initial recruiting screen. And so just for sticking around in this episode, I'm going to give you a free gift. It's the best recruiting pitch deck to candidates. I'm going to give it to you. It's a PDF that you're going to go ahead and walk through, and it's going to outline and map out everything that we're going to talk about in this episode. So with that said, ultimately what this comes down to is we want to show you the true art form of storytelling. Every time you have a conversation with a candidate, that is a new experience that you're going to have as a recruiter with a candidate. And we're going to go through that storytelling, and there's going to be 4 very distinct roles that you're going to have as you tell that story of what your opportunity is all about. So this is an exciting one. I'm pumped up. So let's get into this. All right, well, let's get into it. We're going to build the framework on how to present the best recruiting pitch to a candidate. And so the concept essentially is we want to break this down into 4 specific scenes. So again, the art of storytelling is what we're going after. What we're going after is an experience. You want to present obviously an optimal recruiting experience, but at the same time, the candidate wants to have an enhanced experience as well by the engagement, the interaction, the business acumen, the knowledge base that's going to happen during these conversations that's going to take place when you're presenting an opportunity. And it's conversational recruiting. It's going through various talking points. It's just like scripting out, anything else that happens in life, in film, in music, whatever it might be. So we're going to break this down into 4 specific scenes. And the first scene is going to be the background scene, right? It's the genesis and the origin scene of the company. So you came into this company, you were hired by this company, and you actually went through these experiences. Maybe you had a recruiter reach out to you. Maybe it was an employee referral. But either way, somebody came up to you and started talking to you about this company. They were either a well-known brand, or you had to do some research on the company, and then you had those conversations. You went through those conversation process, and you had interview maybe take place, and you went through a series of interviews. So you got to kind of have that firsthand candidate experience. What you're doing through this process is you're just going to quickly sort of recognize, kind of go down memory lane and understand, what was that experience like for me? What were the takeaways? What were the things that got me pretty pumped up or excited about the opportunity? What kind of sucked about it? Maybe it took a little while for you to kind of really fully grasp the company, but you want to go ahead and kind of just really jot down some basics here as far as what that experience was like. Now, if you're a recruiter that is actually servicing a client, it's a new client of yours, you're going to go through that same process. You're going to have an intake call with that client, with that client manager, and you're going to do a scoping call. So you're going to ask those questions. What makes this company awesome? What's cool about working there? Why do employees like working in this establishment? What's the culture like? Things like that. You want to go ahead and hone in on that. And that's going to give you some background there as well. And so once you kind of have these kind of pieces together, you want to even kind of take it a little bit step further. What was that onboarding process like? What was the orientation? And what was like the first week? The assimilation and the training that followed. How was the first 30 days, the 60 days? And hopefully you can gather as much information as possible. But once you have that, now you're going to be kind of invested into your story. The thing about storytelling is you want to be genuine about the opportunity. And as recruiters, we're put into situations where we might be pitching an opportunity that sucks. It's not going to be a good opportunity. And so a lot of times this is where our salesmanship, leadership, our branding, our marketing kind of skill set comes into play. And that's why it's all part of recruiting. And so you're going to have to position an opportunity the best you can, because you're going to have to get the best talent that's available out there. And so you're going to have to be genuinely invested in it. And the more that you can search for all the positive things, all the things that make this opportunity appealing, then you're going to come across as very genuine, very sincere, and that's going to position you so that you can build that trust and rapport with that candidate. So go ahead and jot down all this information, the genesis, the beginnings of this client, what you know of the company, if it's reputable, if you had to find out through research. But go ahead and jot those things down, absorb it, take away all the positives. It's okay to identify the negatives and things like that, but really focus on the positive traits about the opportunity. All right, so ready? Action. Here we go. Scene number 2. Scene number 2 is in the storytelling concept, as we're building the framework here, is in any good story, you have a lead character, the one who opens the scene up. And obviously, you're the one that's opening the scene up because you're the one that's reaching out to this candidate. You're connecting and engaging with this candidate. And so, yes, technically you are a recruiter, but even more so, I want to expand on that. Your specific role within this scene, within this experience that we're building out here, is that you are a master facilitator. You are a facilitator of the experience of the process. And so as a facilitator, you want to set expectations and you want to set the framework of what is going to happen during this conversation. So as we kind of dig into it and as you kind of open up, there's going to be 3 different ways that you're going to kind of come into this conversation with this prospect or this candidate. So the 3 ways are going to be, you're going to come in cold. It's a cold call, right? And so as recruiters, we're used to this. We're used to cold calling them. Maybe I'm going to get them. It's not going to be a good time. It's probably, whatever. I'm stalking this candidate down. I need to talk to this candidate. So you're going to come in cold. They have no recollection. Your emails have gone to spam. They haven't listened to your voicemails. They've gotten 10, 15 calls from other recruiters throughout the week. So you're on the bottom of the list there. So that's a cold call. Just like in sales people do cold calls. In recruiting, we do cold calls to candidates as well. So that's the first way you're going to come in. The second way is it's going to be more of a warmer lead. It's a warm lead that you have now. And by that, I mean, you have done your due diligence, meaning you have done your outbound, your outreach initiatives. You've emailed them, you've left them voicemails, maybe you've texted them. And so you've developed some sort of relationship. And I call this a subliminal relationship that you develop with your candidate. Because if you reached out to your candidate a handful of times, especially over like a week or a few day period of time, they've heard your voice, they've heard your style of your email, a text maybe. And so they've recognized, hey, maybe they were too busy, didn't get a chance to get around to it. And you call them like, oh, that's right. You're that recruiter that called me about that opportunity. So that is a warm lead. So you're not going to be coming in cold. It's a little bit more warmer, a little bit more friendlier from that standpoint. And then finally, the third way is going to be you're coming in hot. And the reason why you're coming in hot is because you've made that connection. You've reached out to them multiple times, or maybe you got it the first time around, or maybe it's an employee referral. But either way, you've scheduled some time with that candidate. So they have a clear expectation that you scheduled 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it may be. Now, the expectation as far as how long your recruiting pitch is important. And this is something that you should understand, that you should probably have a good sense as far as how much time am I going to take of this candidate's time, to go ahead and go through this recruiting pitch, this conversational recruiting experience that I'm going through. And so I've been with clients and companies where it can take 7-10 minutes. As quickly as you can, right? And sometimes you just don't care as a recruiter, and you're just like, are you available and you need the job? And it's volume centric. And so, hey, we get it, right? And so there's not much of a pitch there. But even then, you can refine the pitch a little bit. It's about what kind of standard do you want to set for yourself? Now, 15 to 20 minutes probably is the norm for a lot of recruiters out there. But I would even say the more complex the talent is that you have to engage in, or the opportunity, or the branding of the company, the reputation of the company, you might be going to a 20 to 30 minute phone conversation, and scheduling a 30-minute call with a candidate is reasonable. I've also been on calls where I'm doing a 45-minute recruiting pitch and even up to an hour talking to a recruiter. Sometimes you might need to spend an hour to talk to a candidate. And so go ahead and map that out, make that distinction. But as you go in to your conversation, you're coming in hot, warm or cold, and either way, you're going to thank them for taking the time. And obviously, you want to make sure that it's still a good time, even if you've already scheduled that time. And go ahead and make the chit chat. Go ahead and take advantage of kind of having those pleasantries go back and forth. You'll be able to know quickly if they're in the mood to chit chat, and you want to be able to mirror that candidate and kind of what their approach is. So figure out how you can personalize that experience, whether you're talking about a location, an alma mater, a school, a company that they've worked with, something that you picked up on their resume, the weather, whatever it is. Go ahead and have, a minute or two, if you can, to have some small, light-hearted conversation with the candidate. But once you go ahead and do that, then that's when you kind of transition and say, hey, you're going to set up the framework. So really what I want to do in this call here is I want to go high level about the company. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the company. And then I want to kind of transition and paint the best picture I can about the opportunity, the team, the culture, the environment, really kind of dig into the position specs, answer any questions that you have, find out about your current situation. And then if there's still mutual interest from both sides, then we'll go ahead and kind of walk you through the next steps in the process. How does that sound? Sounds good? Great. All right. So even now at that point, you've set expectations, you've set the framework up. Now they understand clearly. You've even said, hey, this is going to be about me, 8 to 10 minutes conversation. I'm going to kind of paint this picture out for you. So now you've set those expectations. Now this is a good time to, again, sort of recognize their talent and why you're reaching out to them. Again, hey, the reason why I'm reaching out to you is because you have the leadership skills, the management skills, you have these technical skills. You've worked at some companies that are reputable, that are in alignment with us. And so we understand, what a successful candidate profile looks like for this position. And that's why I wanted to reach out to you. That's why I was really excited to connect with you. Share your enthusiasm with that candidate as you go through it. But as you engage and as you kind of make that connection, this is also a good time to identify yellow or potential red flags. And so the one thing that you don't want to do as a recruiter is you don't want to go and schedule a 30-minute, 45-minute call, and to get to the 30th minute or the 45th minute of your recruiting screen call, your pitch, only to find out that what you knew all along was that this person wasn't qualified for your position. So at that moment, you want to address everything up front. This is a great opportunity to disqualify that candidate right then and there. Say, hey, really excited to connect with you. The only thing that I wanted to bring up front was that this position requires a certain type of a background check or a clearance requirement, or maybe we need a writing sample. Or we're concerned about kind of the gap in your employment. You took 6 months off, that sort of thing. Or, hey, you were previous employee. Did you leave on good terms? Hey, you live out 45 minutes away. This requires you to work 5 days in the office. So you want to address kind of those deal breaker scenarios up front. You may not have them all the time, but if you sniff out a couple of them, you want to go ahead and be able to mention that. When you do that, then you can let them know, like, look, I want to be respectful of your time on this front, but I'm not sure that this is going to be the right fit. Let me do some legwork on my end. Let me go back to the manager and see if this makes sense. If it does, let's go ahead and reschedule. You conclude that call. You thank them for that call. If it's pretty apparent that it's not a good fit, that's going to be an opportunity for you to ask for a referral. So there you have it. That is the first scene. That's a lot of information there for you. But again, I'm providing you that recruiting pitch deck to candidates, the best recruiting pitch that you can give to it. And this will kind of outline a lot of this for you. It's a great guideline for you to follow and to kind of start developing, sort of that script, those conversational talking points that you want to have with your candidates. Scene 3, here we go. We're storytelling, remember. So just as we're storytelling, every time we go through a different scene, there's a specific or a different role that you're going to be playing as a recruiter. And in scene 3, the role that you're going to be playing is that of the ambassador. And just like any good ambassador, an ambassador represents the company, the organization, the client that you're servicing. That is going to be your focus and your attention. This is going to be an opportunity for you to pitch the company. This is a company pitch opportunity in an ambassador type of way, not as in a salesy kind of way, but more conversational recruiting. So as you remember in the last scene, you set the framework up where you kind of let them know what the expectations were. Hey, we're going to go high level on the company, give you some information on the organization, the company. Then we're going to talk about the opportunity specifically, right? So you kind of map that out already. So you've already warmed them up a little bit on that front. Now you want to get into the weeds a little bit, but not too much into the weeds. So it really kind of depends. This is a great opportunity for you to talk about all the positive traits about the company. And so it's going to be more factual than anything. Hey, we've been around for 20 years, or have you heard of us? I sent you some information about our organization. Did you get a chance to look at that? Are you familiar with us? That's going to help you immediately understand what that baseline of familiarity is. Now, if you're working for a reputable company, an iconic company, it's going to be a lot more easier to say, but still you want to kind of dig into the facts, because even if it is a reputable, well-branded company, the fact of the matter is a lot of people just aren't familiar with the details. They aren't familiar with, hey, we just did $45 billion last year. We did 150 million this year, and we're going to grow to 200 million. We've had 20% growth, right? These are kind of some factual numbers. We're headquartered, in San Diego. We're headquartered over here. We have over 20 offices regionally. In your area, we have 4 offices. You're painting the picture of the company. How many employees? We have over 40,000 employees. We got 100,000 employees. We're a startup. We're at 25 employees right now. Hey, we got 100 employees, and the average tenure for our employees is 6 years. Find those areas of positivity in your recruiting pitch as you're describing the opportunity. And those are kind of the basics as far as what can I present as far as that can be factual. If there's some things in the news, things that they can read about that's positive or negative, you want to get ahead of it. So go ahead and address it. Hey, yeah, we got this latest product. I don't know if you've read about it, but we're rolling it out. Or, hey, we're going to hire 100 people this season. Maybe it's a seasonal type of recruiting gig that you have. Right? We just deployed. We're under so much demand right now. We're hiring 10 quality assurance managers right now. We're so busy right now that we're looking for customer success reps because we can't keep up with the demand. So this is your opportunity to show a level of enthusiasm and excitement, but also address any negativity that might be out there pertaining to the company as well. Get ahead of that. But you want to go ahead and dig into a little bit more. You want to dig into, your core competencies. What are our core competencies as a company? We do this, and that. These are the 3-4 things. List about 3-4 core competencies. We focus on program management. We focus on financial management, delivery. We're solution-based. We have an outstanding reputation in our industry, right? And so now you're describing again a little bit more about the organization. You're getting a little bit more granular. You started at macro, but you want to go ahead, and then you want to go ahead a little bit further and dig in a little bit deeper. And so maybe you might want to have an opportunity to talk about the leadership, the CEO. We have a new CEO. We have our CEO who's been around for 10 years. Say something positive about that CEO. There's so many opportunities where you can just personalize the company. You can personalize the experience that you've had. I've been with the company for 2 years. I just got started, and I tell you what, it's really exciting. One of the reasons why I came on board was because this, and that. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm really providing that level of energy of this is a good company to come work for. And so I'm being genuine because you did your legwork beforehand. You found out what was your initial experience with the company. What are the positive traits, the positive character traits of the organization? What is the culture all about? Hey, what's really important for us is a culture fit into the company. And for us, culture fit means we focus on intangibles. Yeah, skill sets, absolutely we need it, especially if it's technical. But we're also looking for people that are team players. At the same time, they can work independently, collaborators, take initiative, So these are going to be some things out here. Have good moral value, stand by hey, these are our code of conduct. These are our ethic-based guidelines that we have. This is our mission statement. These are things that you can describe in just a couple of sentences, just based on conversation. And so you're hitting it top level. You're talking about high level here, organization, numbers, revenue, employees, location, core competencies, culture, fit, the leadership, the management team, that's all part of it. Once you've done that, that is your company pitch. This is part of the recruiting pitch. This is how you give how you present an opportunity to a candidate in an optimal way. And this is really important. You're playing the part of an ambassador. So really, script it out. And this is why I'm giving you this free gift as far as the best recruiting pitch to candidates, so you can have that guideline to follow around, because I'm providing this as a framework for you. But in this scene, crush it, be that ambassador that pitches that company and gets that candidate excited about the opportunity. All right, so we made it to the final scene. This is the fourth scene here of the recruiting pitch, giving the best recruiting pitch to a candidate. And in this scene, the recruiting role that you're playing right now in this scene is going to be that of a sales/marketing representative. That's essentially what you're going to be doing. You're going to be selling and marketing the heck out of the role, the position, the opportunity that you're pitching to them. And so a lot of times, sometimes I should call it the magician sometimes, because as a recruiter, sometimes we have to be magicians. Sometimes we get crappy recs that are presented to us by hiring managers, and we got to try to sell this job. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we do as recruiters. We are selling jobs, selling opportunities. Sometimes they're easy, right? They're slam dunks, no problem. You barely even have to do anything. Sometimes you're scuffling, right? You're dipping and diving just to get anything going here as far as a sales opportunity. And so as recruiters, that is part of our DNA, is sales and marketing. And so as you've transitioned through this framework, and we left that last scene, you kind of talked about the company, you were the ambassador. Now at this point, you're going to pivot, you're going to transition. It's a very natural transition. That's really important for you to understand. That's what makes this the best pitch to candidates, is that there's a natural transition. It flows. And you want your conversation to be able to flow as you pivot and transition from talking point to talking point. That is the difference between a top 1% recruiter and recruiters that don't practice this, that have not developed this skill, or don't even take the time to kind of give that impact experience to your candidates. And so as you transition over here, ultimately, you're going to go ahead and really just almost verbatim explain the opportunity, the position, right? Hey, this is the position. It is a solutions architect. It is a chief engineer. It is the vice president of sales, right? It is, you are the regional director of whatever. You are the graphic designer, the art director, whatever. You are the nurse, the lead nurse, whatever it might be. You are going to go ahead and probably more than likely have the job description right in front of you. And so as you transition, hey, I know that as you transition over to it, one of the things that you can preface this as you transition, saying, hey, I know I sent you the job description, but did you get a chance to look through it and kind of go through that job description? Great. Well, let me hit some of the highlights of what we're looking for. You see how I transitioned that? If no, I didn't really get a chance to look at it. Here's the reality. The reality is that a lot of candidates, they get bombarded a lot, especially if they're good talent. So they don't have time to read requisitions. And if they do, they skim through it. And so by asking them, hey, did you get a chance to look at the job description? It's not to just call them out on it, but it's really more informational to see how much you're going to have to dig into presenting that specific opportunity. So, okay, great. That's wonderful. Well, let me kind of just hit the highlights of this position. So this role, it's a senior level sales director. You're going to be managing a team of about 20 people. We're looking for somebody that's got at least 10 years of sales experience, especially in the SaaS industry. The location is, right at our headquarters, but we have some flexibility that you can work 2 or 3 days a week. Right. And so you're starting to map that out. And as you continue to map that out, you're going to want to hit the highlights. Look, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody who can come together and put a sales plan together, execute on a sales strategy, right? We have a goal here that we're going to try to hit X millions of dollars at year 1, maybe year 2. And so a lot of times what I will do is sometimes I will just go ahead and literally, as I'm talking and screening to the candidate, I'm actually reading the job requisition. I'm like kind of skimming through it and just kind of reading through it and just kind of hitting the highlights. That is an art form in itself. If you can just kind of glance and just pull out kind of the highlights, the talking points of a requisition, then you kind of make it conversational. And you don't have to hit on the whole laundry list. You don't have to be like, wow, now we need 4 years of, you don't have to do all of that. But what you can do is kind of summarize it. Summarize all the highlights, the specifics as far as what's important about this role and this job. And hopefully you've gotten to a place here where as you've gotten some reps and you've talked to some candidates and some managers have given you feedback, you're fine-tuning even the pitch about the specific job description as well. So it's really important to make sure that you understand clearly what that position entails and what are the requirements needed from that. Now, as you go through it, now as you kind of outline that, at that point, you can go ahead and I like to say this, hey, this is where I'm going to take my pause. Right. So, hey, let me pause here for a second, or let me pivot over here. But that's kind of an overview of the opportunity, the company, the position, and the opportunity. Now, the reason why I reached out to you was because when I looked at your experience and your resume, you had this, and this. Now you're job matching. Now you're giving them sort of encouragement, or you're actually displaying more of your skill sets in which you were actually effectively job matching the resume to the requisition. You've gone over the spec details of the requisition, and the reason why I reached out to you was because you have this, and that, and I cover that, and I thought, well, you know what, I wasn't really sure, but it looks like you did this, but the work that you worked at this company here kind of aligns there, so go ahead and play that off. It's not an exact science. It's really more of a hunch, a gut feeling as far as why you thought that was a good job match. Sometimes it's going to be very apparent. It says here that you have 5 years as a Java programmer, and we need 5 years. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's what we're looking for, right? Hey, we need somebody that has worked in this portfolio, has serviced this customer in this industry. That's exactly what you've done. So now you're validating their experience and their background and their credentials, education, and all those things, and why it matches up with this particular opportunity. So let me pause there and, candidate, Mr. or Mrs. Candidate. So what are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts on the opportunity, and what are some of the questions that you might have that I can help answer? And so at that point, that's when you take your pause. And a good indicator as far as whether you did your job, you presented at a top 1% level, is that a candidate will more than likely, when you get through this part of the process, they're going to say, hey, thank you for taking the time and mapping that out. It helps me out a lot to really understand this position more. Hey, I thought I knew the company, but really you gave me some good insight. Now I think I know a little bit more than what was on the job description. They're really thankful. They're really thankful that you as a recruiter took time to present an opportunity to them. And you're demonstrating that you did your due diligence, that you're not some average recruiter or some recruiter that's just winging it who hasn't been trained properly. You are a seasoned recruiter. You are an expert recruiter. You're demonstrating to them that you've done your homework and you're prepared. And you're having an amazing conversation with them, and you're giving them an enhanced candidate to recruiting experience. Ultimately, that's your goal. And as you kind of pause there and as you pivot there, this is when you kind of go back into the feedback as far as the questions. You answer the questions that they may have, and then you essentially, if it's a good fit, you're going to get into the screening process. We're not going to get into the screening process here at this point. I do provide training courses online find that kind of get even more granular in this process, but even the recruiting screening process is an art form in itself when you kind of dive into that interaction. But what you have now is the best recruiting pitch to candidates right at your fingertips. It's in your PDF. I'm excited for you to work on it. Use the guideline. And here's the thing that you want to do. You want to role play this thing out. You want to be able to role play this thing out. And I would say the one final thing here is that how you know that you have a high level of confidence about your recruiting pitch is that one day you're going to be working at this company and there's going to be a new recruiter that's going to join the team. And that new recruiter is going to want to know, hey, what's the pitch? What is it? Hey, can I listen in on a call? And a recruiter that is like, hey, yeah, go ahead and listen on a call with me. Here, this is the pitch. And demonstrates and shows to that peer, that recruiter, that new recruiter that's coming on board, can talk to a candidate and walk them through that process, has a high level of confidence. That is a top 1% recruiter. Now, if you're a consultant or contractor, this is some intellectual property here that you have as well. You don't want to gain that competitive edge. You may not want to share your recruiting pitch with other recruiters, right? Because this is what separates you from other recruiters. This is what makes you the best recruiter on the team. So kind of discern what is good for you, what you want to do. If you want to share, you want to mentor, go ahead and share your recruiting pitch with somebody. That's always good, especially for team building. But if you're a consultant or contractor and you have a competitive edge to you, keep it to yourself. I'm giving you nuggets here. I'm giving you diamonds, right, that are right here at your fingertips. So take advantage of it. And I would go through and script it out, write it out, and then rehearse it, talk it. I had a client for years where I had a script written out, printed out, and as I was talking, I would go through those bullet conversation talking points, and I would make it conversational. And then you memorize it, and then it's just like this. And then when you memorize it, you can do it anywhere. You can do it in your car, you can do it in the bathroom, out of the bathroom, but you can do it anywhere, right? You can do it on the beach. You can do it anywhere. You can have a recruiting conversation with a candidate and deliver at a high performance level with that candidate because you're dialed in. You've got that muscle memory on the conversation, on the talking points, on the flow, and you're excited about it, and they recognize it, and they're very appreciative of the experience that you just gave them. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Remember, top 1% recruiters, we always level up.